Shannon Sider's body was discovered in a wooded area of Newaygo on October 15, 1989. Over 2 decades have passed since the 18-year-old was murdered. Her killer remains at large. Who killed the Newaygo native? The man behind the website Delayed Justice is also a filmmaker seeking answers in a newly released documentary called Into the Dark that we discuss on Newsmakers.
We have an 18-year-old girl that was murdered, a horrific murder, under the most terrible circumstances, and a person that hasn't been properly identified or prosecuted.
My gut says it was somebody that's been in this home that knew her and she went out there with him willingly. And it's somebody that they've been questioning from day one, or they know who it is. There's people they've been questioning. My gut tells me it was somebody in her age group and somebody she knew.
She was murdered on the 18th of July, 1989.
I think the perpetrators should understand that this cloud of suspicion, this cloud that they've created for themselves is not just on them, it's on their family. They've brought this onto their family. This is a small town. That's how small towns work.
And start walking up to the cemetery. At the cemetery, we're going to have scripture reading and a prayer. We're going to have time for anybody who would like to speak out on Shannon's behalf. Are we ready? All right, let's go. It is well with my soul. It is well.
Share a few thoughts with you this afternoon before we give you an opportunity to share some good thoughts and memories of Shannon. There's times in our lives when all of us have why God moments, don't we, in our lifetime?
Yes, we do. Why God? Why? But for investigators, perhaps even more important is who. Who, in the early morning hours of July 18th, 1989, took Shannon Marie Siders into the dark.
We now know how Shannon Siders was killed, but with what and by whom remains a mystery. 2 men on a mission to track down her killer, or killers, join us to discuss the investigation. David Schock is a filmmaker who is best known for his documentary, Who Killed Janet Chandler. His findings helped the cold case team unlock that murder mystery, and Detective First Lieutenant Cameron Henke of the Michigan State Police Department will provide us with some insight into the inner workings of a cold case investigation. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
These investigations are fascinating. They're heartbreaking, especially as you get through all the pieces here. But in the end, you hope that justice is served. I know that's your mission as well as yours.
Sure.
Putting this documentary together and to go to Newaygo and to talk with family and friends, is there a landscape that you're seeing here? Is there a path that will lead law enforcement to finding the killer here eventually?
I believe so. I trust so. Every fiber of my being says so, yes.
You've interviewed the father. That's heartbreaking.
I've interviewed Shannon's father, her grandmother, her cousin. I've talked with the aunt, other family members, yeah.
These small town murder cases, as you watch the documentary, over and over and over and over, you hear, this is a small town. Mm-hmm. The killers more than likely knew their victim. How true is that in most of these cases?
You know, it depends upon the case. I mean, certainly in small towns, what your hope is that because everybody knows everybody, that maybe that's going to create means by which additional information is going to be provided to law enforcement. You know, these people aren't transients. It's not somebody that came into town and nobody knew their name. There's several friends that saw her the last day that she was alive. And that at least gives you a starting point. But to say that the fact that it's in a small town is going to lead, you know, to finding out who did this, you know, until you know who it was that did it, you would almost have to work backwards at that point for it to necessarily prove that theory to be true. At this point, we don't know who did it. We don't know if it was somebody that knew her or not. You know, I'm a firm believer that you let the facts that you develop as an investigator formulate the theories and the opinions that you have, not the other way around. So at this point, you know, we don't know who it was.
It seems like there's enough information to know what took place that night, that she left the house, was down at the river swimming. Well, at least this is what the father is.
They know some things, but the crucial thing about where she went, when, and with whom is, I think, unknown.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we have ideas of what she did that night. We have people that can give us a timeline of when the last time that she was seen. But as of right now, we're working with a gap in time. And it's that gap in time that, you know, we believe that she was killed. And our job now as cold case investigators are to fill that gap. Our job now is to go out and find the person or persons who know what happened during that period of time, and keep plugging away until we complete that timeline on both ends.
But she was with a group of friends at some point in the evening.
Yes.
And then her body is found in a wooded area
3 months
later by a hunter. Let's just show a clip of the medical examiner here and what he had to say about the findings.
I think the person who was killing her was out of his mind with rage. That's not to say that I think he's, how do you say it, criminally insane, just besides himself with rage for whatever reason.
And the way you termed it, the homicide, a sadistic, sexually oriented murder.
Yep.
Why those terms?
If I told you why, I'd be revealing evidence from the scene that only the people who were there know. So I'm not going to answer it.
A killer in rage, a sexual homicide.
Well, that's his opinion. One of the things is you rarely can tell. If you're not there to observe, you just don't know. I mean, Dr. Grazier is making, from his standpoint, a logical conclusion. But maybe yes, maybe no.
But we do know this was a brutal murder and a sexual assault. Can that be surmised at this point, or is that an unknown?
I think it's an unknown. Yeah, I don't know that you can surmise that at this point. I think that, you know, again, certainly, you know, it appears Dr. Grazier had theories based off his examination as to what happened, but from a standpoint of an investigator, and you know, the time that I've spent reading the reports and the time that I've conferred with the cold case team, you know, we are still actively trying to piece the puzzle together as to what happened that night, and I certainly wouldn't be ready to come out and say that that was the motive. I think that's all still under investigation at this point.
Here's what I find fascinating about what you're doing, and that is that you come in with a fresh set of eyes. How do you go through the facts from the past and know, okay, yes, no, or, you know, I mean, so much is being thrown at you and your team also. How do you sort through it all to know, yeah, we keep this kind of goes in the maybe pile? How does that work?
It's extremely tedious, and you know, cold case investigation is exciting to the public. You know, there's a lot of television shows out now that are highlighting cold case investigations, and the truth is you have to find the right people. You have to find people that are tenacious investigators that are willing to pore through old reports. Most cold case investigators will come into a case having never worked it before, knowing very little about it. They don't have the benefit of the original investigator that saw it with his own eyes or were parts of all the interviews. They have to read those reports. In this case, we have over 1,800 pages of reports that were put in binders, and these investigators poured over that information so that they were as familiar with the facts of this case and the things that happened that day as the people that were there in 1989. We spent time with those original investigators. Detective Sergeant Miller is a legend in the state police for the work he's done on homicide cases. He's one of the finest detectives our agency has ever had, and when he comes in and sits down and tells our investigators what his observations were at that time, what his feelings were at that time, different people he interviewed, how they came off in the interview. Well, that's going to be very different than what you read in a police report. I mean, reading it is one thing, getting the emotions that went into that interview or what the observations were at that time can make a big difference. And it's a tremendous amount of legwork before you ever get out and start reinvestigating. 3 to 4 months were spent just organizing and just familiarizing themselves with the report. So that's how you get yourself up to where the investigation was left off. Certainly a fresh set of eyes is valuable. Also having a team that is dedicated to that case and that case only. Usually detectives at a post, you know, they're going to work that case, but other cases don't stop coming in. There's going to be another homicide down the road. There's going to be other index crimes that have to be investigated. This team is focused on this case and this case only. So, I mean, that's a big benefit to them as well.
David, you and I spent some time in a courtroom not so long ago,
Not
the
so long
Janet
ago,
Chandler
yeah.
trial.
Yeah.
Are you seeing some similarities here? Because in
Well,
that
Young women.
yeah, in that trial, I remember the first couple of days, it took one person and the dominoes start to fall.
But that's how these things work. Now, my work, you know, you think, wow, you're a filmmaker, you're going to broadcast this. We are going to broadcast this on public broadcasting on, you know, April 2 at midnight. But this film is made for one person. I'm trying to reach just one person, which is the person who's going to be able to tell with authority, to tell his team with authority what happened.
You mentioned Detective Miller in this case.
Yeah.
He summarized this guy's a sociopath. I say guy, it may be a woman out there.
May.
Does the sociopath come forward? Can you get through to the sociopath?
I think not likely.
Well, you know, one person coming forward may just be a witness that knows what happened.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things about cold case investigation, and one of the reasons that cold case investigation or cold case teams are so successful, one, you have the advances in forensic science. I mean, obviously, with the advances with DNA and things of that nature, there's an awful lot of cases that have been solved simply because there's technology available to the investigators today that weren't available 23 years ago. But the other reason is that factors in people's lives change. In 1989, a witness to this or somebody that saw this maybe felt that they were in love, maybe felt that they were protecting somebody that meant a great deal to them. This many years later, that person may be a non-factor in their life anymore. Maybe that person that was scared for their own life in 1989, if they had talked, isn't afraid anymore. Maybe they're more mature now. There's a number of factors that we hope that person in 1989 that was reluctant to come forward will say today, I'm going to do now what I should have done back then, and I'm still going to bring justice to this case.
If people get religion, they grow stronger, they grow less afraid, or they more, but things change. And after a certain point, it's my observation in cases, after a certain point, when the case grows cold, time actually is your ally. And I think time is your ally right now in that of your team, because they've got 5 members on this team. Mm-hmm. 5 members who are experienced investigators, who are really bright and who have a heart for this. And they have a heart for Shannon and her family. They want more than anything. One thing I've been able to observe over the years is police officers just hate it when the bad guy gets away with it, or bad gal. But in this case, it would seem likely, you know, that there are far more men than women who engage in this kind of behavior.
And the police chief, Nuego's police chief, even
Pat
says,
Hedlund.
yeah, there's not a day where somehow it creeps into the daily routine. Her name comes up.
It's always there. This is something that is on Nuego. And I believe that it exerts a powerful influence. This is an evil. I have no hesitation saying that this was an evil act by an evil person. And the act of evil hangs over this community. the community is not going to be able to go ahead wholly until this is solved.
We all interview people at different levels at this table, which is interesting.
Yeah.
The boyfriend comes across as very believable, as somebody who is sincere, and I know you interviewed him.
He was in tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot that's not in the film too. That you know.
Sure. Yeah.
I
You
mean,
know, time.
time is my enemy at that
Right.
point. Gee, I'd have made a shorter film if I could. But there's a lot that you don't see as well. So I've done the best that I can to take the parts that advance the story. What is this thing? But yes, the boyfriend, Brian.
On the flip side, how difficult is it for people in a cold case investigation? It's as if, you know, you're always going to be a suspect when these things drag out for decades. You know, once a suspect, always a suspect. I mean, how difficult is that for some of the folks that you've interviewed along the way? Because they can't all be the killer.
No, and I don't. You know, I think that there's certain differing degrees in that. You know, there are people that had alibis at that time for where they were and what they were doing, and you know, I mean, they were never considered strong suspects. I mean, certainly you're going to look at anybody that was close to her. I mean, that's typically where an investigation starts. But again, I mean, our job as police officers, we're finders of fact. That's our job. Talk to people, document what was said, and see where those facts lead us. And there's people out there that, yeah, certainly they're still on a suspect list. And if they're not the person that did it, yeah, I would imagine that would be a difficult thing to have associated with your name your whole life. But you know, we're not looking to further persecute those people.
Sure.
We're just trying to get to the bottom of what happened.
It does stick, though. As Shannon's father said, there are still people in the community that think he did it. You know, and he said, I understand that there are people, I didn't, and he's been cleared. But until you find those responsible, it's going to be very difficult for those who are tangentially involved, relationally involved, for them to draw a full relaxed breath. And for those who know something, I mean, one of the things I talked with Robert Springstead, who's the prosecuting attorney for Newaygo County, and my question to him was, you know, the first one through the door gets a hall pass maybe? And he said, well, it depends on the seriousness of involvement, but the goal is to get somebody to talk with the understanding that you may have limited involvement, and your knowledge may help you if you're here first. But if you're here late.
Yeah, early on in the documentary, it sounds like there was a group mentality somewhere, that there was a gathering of people, and somebody has to know something somewhere.
Well, somebody always knows something.
Right. But it just seemed like there were numbers involved here. That
Just to piggyback on what Mr. Schock said, you know, I mean, these opportunities to come forward, I mean, truly, I mean, they don't present themselves indefinitely. I think Mr. Schock makes you know, a good point, and Prosecutor Springstead has been, you know, instrumental in our work so far in this case. He's one of these prosecutors that isn't just waiting for a report to be put on his desk. He stays in close contact with us, and we keep him up to speed as to where we're at in the course of the investigation. And you know, I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, you tell people in these type of cases. These opportunities aren't going to present themselves forever. You know, one person comes forward, the dominoes do begin to fall. And you're looking for that person that, you know, I absolutely do believe we're going to solve this. I mean, I do believe that. And when, you know, that opportunity, that door closes, you don't want to be saying to yourself, I wish I'd been that person that you know, that came forward first. And, you know, we throw that out there to those people that maybe were there, that maybe know something, that, you know, now is the time that to come forward, because this team is moving forward, and we expect that, you know, that answers are forthcoming.
so new technologies are at play here,
And 5 guys who have nothing else to do but work this case.
let's go back because I want to work my way up to that. What are some of the red flags, or these things that were coincidental along the way in the documentary? There are a couple things that stuck out in my mind.
Like what?
Well, I thought it was interesting, the stories from cousin Hallery, whose
Oh, yeah.
whose dad is also, or is he still he's not still the sheriff of Newaygo.
Oh, his her father was the sheriff,
Right,
yes,
right.
and he is no longer that. But
The
yeah, what
threats
about
that
that
were coming
story?
her way.
Well, what about the window peepers or
That too, that was the second one.
the attempted abduction? And then after Shannon's murder, what about these threats that came by telephone to both the Grant household and to Hillary?
Don't say anything. Keep your mouth shut.
Right, yeah, you're
About
next.
what? Or you're next.
You're
yeah.
next. Your daughter's going to wind up just like Shannon. What about this? Could it be pranksters with really sixth senses? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is the truth? I will not know until these guys solve this thing. So I wish they, I really want to know. I want to know the rest of this story.
The
And-
peepers.
Yeah.
And the shotguns
Is it so?
at the house.
Is it so? Now, my question to Hillary's father was, is your daughter prone to exaggeration? Well, she's a bit of a hypochondriac, maybe, but no, when she did tell me that, either that night or really shortly thereafter, and I was concerned. And no, my daughter would not tell. There are only two people who know for sure whether somebody tried to break into Shannon's house about 2 weeks before she was abducted, and one of them is dead. So, coincidental? It's an unusual coincidence. I don't know. I'm just trying to, that's part of the story. It has to be part of the story because it's there. But whether it has an effect, how it relates, I don't yet know.
How was that person killed?
Well, that was Shannon. She was murdered.
Right. I thought you meant
Abducted and
right.
murdered.
I thought you meant one of the other.
No, there were two people in the house.
Right.
When Hillary says somebody was trying to break in. This is maybe 2 weeks before Shannon's abduction and murder. One of them was Shannon, and the other is Hillary. So there's only one person living who knows.
And this is, as we progress here, this is where I'm going with this. Talking about 1989 technologies and everything else. You're now on the case. Today's technologies. How much is that helping you? Without getting into detail, we don't want to do any of that here, though. Have you found some bits of evidence today that were not available before as part of this investigation?
We're still early in the stages of the investigation. I mean, truthfully, we're not to the parts of our case where we're deep into the forensic aspects. We're really still in the initial stages of touching base with the people that were closest to her at that time. Will forensic science play a role in this case? We're hopeful that it will. We're certainly examining those things. We're looking at things that maybe would provide us with something today that wasn't there in 1989. And again, without getting into the facts of the case, what I can tell you is that we hope that it gets to that point. But as of right now, we're really still in the initial stages of the investigation.
I want to roll a clip of Detective Sergeant Miller from Michigan State Police and what he thinks happened.
I have a potential theory. I can't prove it. We have had other people identify her as, after the time frame of the Jones boys dropped her off, that she was back on the streets sitting on a bench watching the traffic go by. And I believe that to be accurate. So I surmise that somebody that she knew met her on City Street at this city park bench watching traffic go by. I'm 37. This was within her character, her demeanor, her behavior. Her dad was working midnights and she had to wait until Dad got home. And somebody enticed her to go somewhere.
How important is that theory coming from a man who has worked so hard at trying to unravel this thing and figure out what's going on here?
I mean, the conversations that we've had with Detective Sergeant Miller have been invaluable to our team members. And certainly, we listened to everything that he told us, and it has formed a great background for us to work this case through. But I think Detective Sergeant Miller would agree with you if he was sitting here next to me that the beauty of having a cold case team involved is that 5 guys are going to come in and take a look at this again, starting from the beginning, and that's the key. I mean, we're starting at the very beginning. We presume nothing. We've read 1,800 pages of a police report, but we're starting over as though we were there that first day. and we're going to see where the theory evolves based on our investigation, and if it matches what Detective Sergeant Miller, when he retired, what his feelings on that case were. But we've taken in a lot of different information from a lot of different people, and our hope is that we come to a conclusion in the end.
15 seconds, David. Where we're at today and what you found.
My efforts were to tell the story of a crime and what happened to Shannon. Knowing that I am not going to solve the crime, my job is to tell the story as truly as possible. And then anything that comes out of that, it's my prayer that it goes to them and that it leads to something solid.
All right. The documentary is Into the Dark. Lieutenant Cameron Henke, Michigan State Police, thank you so much for joining us. David Schock, executive producer, and also the founder of Delayed Justice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.